Hi everyone, my name is Stu. I'm a learning designer in the Faculty of Education at UBC, and I'm here to talk to you about transitioning to teaching online. So in this series of videos, we're going to talk about three important factors to consider when you're transitioning from teaching to face-to-face online. I've been teaching face-to-face for probably about 15 years, and I've been teaching online for about the same. So walking between both worlds is possible, so hopefully these videos will help. In this first video, I'm just going to talk about time in detail. And so you might be asking, well, why is time an important factor to consider when teaching online? And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a better understanding of that. So first of all, let's get a few things out of the way. Online courses typically differ from their face-to-face versions. It's not a straight translation. A lot of times the assignments will be different, the activities will be different, and even how you're presenting your content will look quite different. Another thing to consider is that online courses don't usually meet at the same time as their face-to-face courses. That means that students will not be expected to show up at specific times, and I'll get into why that is in the next few slides. And lastly, online courses are usually not self-paced. This means that students do not go through these courses at their own pace. They actually go through as a group together and engage in discourse, work on group projects together, just like they would in a face-to-face environment. This is a common misconception with online learning because it was sort of born out of the early days of online learning in the 80s and 90s, when online learning was actually kind of a direct translation of correspondence courses, whereby students were actually mailed their readings and assignments or mailed a VHS tape of a lecture. They would work on their own, they would complete all the work, send it in one box or package to the instructor, and then the instructor would grade it. So just to be clear, contemporary online courses, for the most part, do not look like this, especially in higher education. So to start, let's just look at a typical face-to-face course. In this diagram, we're looking at the contact hours and the prep and admin time that is usually involved in offering a face-to-face course. So across the bottom on the x-axis, we see maybe a couple of weeks of a course, and on the y-axis on the left, we've got the concentration of what's happening. So if we imagine across a week, we maybe have three courses that are 2 hours, or three classes that are 2 hours long, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, let's say. What's happening in each individual class is pretty dense. It's pretty concentrated, right? You're giving students learning materials. They're maybe giving you feedback on how much they understand. You're giving them group assignments to work on. They're engaged in group activities. They're working on assignments. They're taking exams. They're doing a lot in that kind of finite amount of time. Between those classes, we as instructors typically will be grading, preparing for the next class, engaging with students, working with our TAs, things like that. And that's what a typical online course is, and that's what a typical face-to-face course looks like. Now, this is entirely possible to directly translate this model to an online environment, and that's called an asynchronous environment, meaning it happens at the same time. Synchronous courses are not very common, in all honesty. For the most part, most online teachers opt not to do this model, just simply because it presents too many barriers to students. So one barrier, of course, is just the time, right? If you're expecting students to show up online at a specific time, they might be in different time zones. They might have family or work or other obligations where they cannot actually attend class. Another barrier might be their internet connection. They don't have broadband where they live. They may not even have access to the technologies that would require their participation in this. Most activities like this online require some sort of video chat or video conference, and if they don't have a laptop that has a webcam, that may present barriers to students actually participating in the course. So when we think about online learning and online courses, this is actually the model that most online courses take. It's called asynchronous, and basically that means that students are participating at different times, not in real time, not at the same time, but across a course. So you'll notice that that concentration, that high concentration of learning activity was actually reduced and distributed across the week. So in an online course, typically, instead of meeting at specific times, students will engage at their discretion or whatever time works for them, and that's happening across the week. So some students might listen to a podcast of a lesson as they're at the gym. They might read an activity or engage in an activity while they're eating breakfast, or they might finish an assignment after their kids have gone to bed, for example. You'll also notice that the prep and admin time in this model is a little bit reduced as the course is running, and that's again distributed across time. You as the instructor will be engaging with your students and grading and doing all of those things in a more distributed fashion based on your schedule and what's convenient for you. One thing to consider here is for online courses, typically it's very common for a lot of prep work to be done before the course starts. In a face-to-face environment, we can typically, if we've taught the course before, we can kind of walk in the first day of class, have our materials ready, and just go with it, and we improvise and we adapt as we go. For online courses, this works a little bit differently. It's in an ideal situation, we really want to make sure that a lot of the course is kind of flushed out for the students before they even access it. And so what this means is if we're creating learning materials, if we're setting up assignments, if we're doing all of these things before the term starts, that means that we don't have to do those things when the actual course is running. So that means that we actually don't need to create that many materials as the course is going, so that between classes kind of work is reduced. We're still probably engaging as much as we would with our students and grading and all of those things across the course, but it's just a little less because we've done that prep work in the beginning. Now, as an option, you can always combine the asynchronous and synchronous models of online teaching. So in this case, we might offer online office hours. So this is a good model of what that would look like. We would have that kind of distributed learning across the couple of weeks, and maybe once every couple of weeks I would do a online office hours. Another option is actually just to do once in a while an online lecture where students can log in and have a live experience if you want them to have that experience. Just bear in mind that that same sort of prep work leading up to the lecture and kind of the debrief afterwards is usually required. So student questions, clarifying things, getting recordings in place for the folks who actually could not make it to this session. But the key takeaway in all of this is that the time that students are engaging in the course and the time that you are engaging with the course and working on the course should be about the same. It's just distributed differently across time as opposed to in specific moments as you would attend class. And that's why most online learning environments or most online programs, a lot of online courses, are kind of synonymous with flexible learning. You'll see a lot of advertisements for online learning as flexible learning, and this is why. It's just that distribution of time. So the next question becomes, well, how much time is involved in teaching online versus face-to-face? Whether it's asynchronous or synchronous, it's usually about the same time. Some people argue it's more actually than preparing and teaching in a face-to-face classroom. But as you learn more about teaching online and the tools available to you, you can manage your time accordingly and invest here and not invest there and do what works for you. I don't think there's a one-size-catch-all for this. Some instructors spend much more time when they're teaching online. Other instructors spend a little bit less. So it's really up to you. And next, on the instructor versus the learner side, instructors, again, would spend about the same amount of time. And it's important here to consider when students are engaging here. So learners will always engage as much as they're expected to, right? So they'll engage, they'll be working on their assignments, they'll be chatting with each other, they'll be reading the learning materials or watching videos. So they'll be spending the same amount of time, it is just distributed. So when we're talking about expectations, it is pretty important just to set those early on in your online course. So first for you, you can let your students know when you will be responding to queries. Usually a common thing is to say you'll respond within 24 to 48 hours, put that in the syllabus. Let them know the days that you will be doing that. Typically that's like Monday to Friday. or if you want to engage on the weekend, just let them know that you will be answering on the weekend as well as for your students. Make sure that they know when they're expected to actually log in. Is that twice a week? How much are they expected to participate in the course? And just being clear about those things right at the beginning of the course should really help establish the course and how they're expected to engage and how time will actually work in your course specifically. Now, with all of this, it's important to just consider what your learning outcomes are. Focus on what your students should be learning and experiencing. Again, it might look quite different from what your online or from what your face-to-face course looks like. But as long as the students are learning what they're supposed to be learning, doing what they're supposed to be doing, then it might look different, but they're still getting a good learning experience. And again, if you're new to this, if you've never taught online, if you haven't taken an online course either, that's okay. Just know that if you are stumped or you're stressed, there are communities out there that can help you, whether it's instructional design teams in your faculty or your institution, or even fellow instructors or online communities. So I'd encourage you to have a look at those. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So in the next video, we're actually going to talk about presence and what that means in an online course. Thank you for watching.